So in here you see that we are determined to have independence and peace, and we shall not allow hooligans to rule Kenya. We must have no hatred towards one another. Mau Mau was a disease which has been eradicated and must never be remembered again. So Jomo Kenyatta was really big about trying to bring about peace, and he didn't want the violent revolutions the Mau Mau had. So you can see here that they are eventually given independence, and Kenyatta it becomes president. But very soon he has complete control over Kenya. In 1956, France gives the African colonies choice to remain a part of the French Empire or independence. And quite a few kind of wanted to be a part of the French Empire to economically stay very powerful and at least be able to not fully collapse. However, you did have Algeria, which begins their own war of independence. And this became very complicated because there were a lot of French people living in Algeria. If you can see, Algeria is right here. France is just over the Mediterranean on the other side. So it became more complicated giving Algeria their independence. But eventually in 1958, they were granted independence. However, there was a lot of violence as you had a lot of forces killing upwards of a lot of Algerian forces killing up to 150,000 French people. Eventually, the new government establishes a dictatorship, but the military overthrows, and there are a lot of conflicts between Muslims and Christians that are going to intensify in Algeria. In Angola, which is this country right in here, and you can see by all the different colors, this is all representing different tribes that are in Angola. There was a 14-year war with Portugal, and then you had a further civil war between these groups that lasted until 2002. And then we come to Egypt. Please do not forget that just because Egypt does, though, identify with themselves as being Middle Eastern, they are still part of Africa. Eventually, the British in 1956, the British forces left the Suez Canal zone, and Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the canal. And if you remember, when we talk about something being nationalized, we mean that it comes under the control of the country. So if you can see, the Suez Canal was built right through here, which allowed Great Britain, instead of having to sail all the way around to get to India and their colonies over in the Middle East, they were able to just kind of cut through, go through the Red Sea, and then go up, which made it a lot easier. So in 1956, you have the Suez Crisis occurred when Britain, France, and Israel seized the canal. And in an attempt to actually gain control over the canal to assist this, unfortunately, eventually they had to withdraw their forces, and Egypt does go back to gain full control. And this is unfortunate for Britain and France, as this was their last attempt to really have control over this region in the Middle East, and they most of the world looked at it and was like, this is an invasion of a country. You've just declared war. And it was fortunate that they were able to kind of get out of it without having to have any formal declaration of war and without it causing a further crisis beyond what it already was. Nasser defied the West eventually by accepting financial aid from the USSR. And again, this is going to be something that we're going to see as a common theme throughout the decolonization movement is who is friendly with who. And a lot of these countries tried to be non-aligned, meaning that they were going to not really pick a side, but they accepted financial support from both sides, or sometimes they leaned and supported and received money from one side, even though they weren't fully aligned with that side. And when Egypt does this, this does start to upset the United States and a lot of other nations in the West. In 2002, 53 African countries formed the African Union, focusing on economic, social, political, and environmental problems in Africa. And we see this as being very similar to the UN or to the EU, where these nations were going to get together in an attempt to help Africa without any kind of support from the Western nations. And these are their goals. Despite progress, though, you can see the long lasting impact of European colonization. There is a lot of lingering political, economic, ethnic problems in Africa that we can stretch all the way back. So, looking at this now, I want you to look at the maps from 1885 to 1914, and I want you to think about the changes that took place and what historical events are happening that cause these changes. Your assassination of Patrice Lumumba is due today. You have a question that goes with document A, and then there is a chart with these three questions that go with documents B, C, D, and E. And want you to look at your success criteria and make sure that you can understand what causes these movements. If you have any questions, please come to the office hours from 12:30 to 1 every single day and ask any questions that you might have so that we can understand what's going on with this movement. The unit test for this unit is going to be on the 9th. So you will take a unit exam on April 9th for this unit. It's a very short but very important unit. Have a great day, ladies.